Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know. Deuce and Mo.
Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know.
Do it for Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. Hey. Do it for Deuce and Mo. When it comes to the Kings, it's my favorite show. Do it for Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. Hey. Do it for Deuce and Mo. When it comes to the Kings, big hopes and dreams as we cover our kings. Never cover the kingdom, but we loving our kings. And we covered your prayers as we doing our thing. Big Deuce with the pod, Lil Mo on the screen. Solo or together, still do it for team. Never switch up for $1 or revenue stream. So we always got each other, balance out the beam. Deuce and Mo, and that's the end of the theme song. Do it for Deuce and Mo.
We are live!
Hey.
Wow.
What did Deuce Mason tell you, Morgan Reagan?
You said whether you're dying, you're sick, you don't care, you're broken, you will come on live.
If there's big news, Deuce and Mo will be live.
We will be live, I guess.
What up, Deuce?
Oh, we're fired up, ready to go.
Hey, Morgan.
Hi.
Yeah, are you ready?
I'm rooting for
Okay,
you.
Yeah.
good. Thank you. What about the Kings, huh?
Let's go,
Let's go,
King.
King.
Let's go!
Deuce and Mo. Yay.
So here's how it's going to go down today.
So
Deuce and Mo.
demanding.
No, I'm fired up, okay? Because it's a Saturday. You hit up the bat phone, the Mo phone, say, hey, let's go. We got some tweets to talk about. We go live. If you're with us, give me a hell yeah. If you're with us, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. If you're on Twitch, you can follow, do the same. We drop new emotes in Twitch. Ooh, you know. Yeah,
Wow.
I dropped new emotes for subs on Twitch, and I even dropped a subscribe thing for YouTube, too.
Wow.
That's under approval process.
You know what? My favorite thing about all of this, so I'm on the mend of a really bad sickness, and I can tell Deuce is getting it. So Deuce is like, hey, do we go live, Saturday or Sunday? I'm like, you're going to feel like death tomorrow. Let's go live while you're still feeling it. I love it. You're using your last
I
ounces
am ready.
of energy.
I'm 100% right now. There's nothing. This is...
You're going to be dead sick tomorrow.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
you
not.
are.
Hit the thumbs up button. Let's get that well over 100.
Hell yeah. Let's go. Party people.
All right, let's get this together a little bit. All right, let's start the podcast. So here's how it's going to go. As my voice sounds like it was squeaking a little bit.
Okay.
It's squeaking a little
Just
bit.
a little.
We're going to give kind of our first thoughts
Yeah.
on the news of today. And then my thought was we could open up to the people, not only in the chat, but maybe do a little Discord.
Give me a hell yeah.
Oh, you want another hell yeah. So,
Well, you didn't
okay.
have to. Thank you. I'll take another hell yeah. Love everyone coming here on a Saturday evening. Let's effing go. Yep, I love
It
it.
makes Kings fans different, all right? They show up no
They
matter
show
what.
up.
All right, do some more. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. Hit my music.
Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know.
It's a special edition of the Deuce and Mo podcast with some new Kings news.
Yeah.
We have some finalists in the head coaching search. So, of course, on a Saturday afternoon, what do you do when it's 75 degrees and beautiful in Sacramento? You hop in the studio, turn on the mics, and let's talk about it. I'm Deuce Mason. That's Morgan Reagan. We're here with our first thoughts presented by our friends who are guaranteed rate and rate.com/Sean Stanfield. Morgan Reagan, how are you?
Deuce Mason, I am doing much better. As you know, I've been feverish, dying, coughing, but on the mend and excited that I'm on the mend, especially because I feel like this is going to be a big week and I need all the energy I can get.
Could be a huge week.
I know. So I'm good. I'm excited too. I like finalists because then I don't have to do any more research or find any more quotes or tweets on any other coaches just to convince myself to like someone else.
Well, now you could just dive into the three.
Hell yeah.
And the three, according to multiple reports, including locally from James Ham and Sean Cunningham and Jason Anderson, and then from the national guys like Woj, Sam Amick, and Shams, the Kings finalists for their next head coach, Mark Jackson, Steve Clifford, and Mike Brown. Let's just start right there, Morgan Reagan. When you saw the finalists, did it surprise you? It was only three. Did it surprise you the names involved? What jumped out to you immediately when you saw the names?
Secret time?
Yes.
Full transparency?
Yes.
First tweet I saw, Shams' tweet about Mark Jackson, and I was like, oh. That was my reaction. Like, I didn't know if it was a good thing. I didn't know if it was a bad thing. I didn't know how to feel because you and I have been doing so much work talking to people about Mark Jackson. You know, we obviously know what we already know about him. So now it's more about like putting our emotions to the side and going, okay, because this could really happen. So if this does, how do we buy in and go forward with this? So when I saw that first tweet, that's how I felt.
Or don't buy in. Yeah.
I mean, and you don't have to buy in, but it's the same with any coach. You want your team to win. So there's a little piece of you that no matter what, you go, all right, I'm going to buy in and see where we can go from here, right? Because I think if you're not open to anything, that's a you problem, right? Because you don't get a choice anyway. Sure, you could not be a fan anymore, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen in Sacramento Kings land for a lot of these fans. So that was my first initial reaction. Then I saw Woj's tweet with the other two finalists. I was like, okay.
I think my biggest surprise for me was that none of the assistants made the cut as a finalist.
It was a surprise, but at the same time, I wasn't, only because from what we heard from Sam Amick and James Ham was that the Kings were really big on experience, and that word kept coming up. And but again, when I say experience, it's like
right. That's my pushback
head coaching
on that.
Experience, assistant coaching experience.
And maybe that's just a risk they didn't want to take because, you know, for better or worse, the way they've constructed this roster is they want to win sooner rather than later.
Correct.
And we can talk about all the challenges with that thinking because the West is going to be rather challenging. There's going to be teams who weren't good this year expected to be good next year, or teams that were okay, like the Pelicans, who could be much better next year.
Yep.
That's a topic for another day. I just thought, you know, I thought maybe Darvin Ham would, you know, fly into Sacramento. And there's so many factors when this stuff, you know, comes out. It's one, they do an interview. Maybe Darvin Ham wasn't feeling the Kings either. Like, that's the other thing. Maybe Darvin Ham's like, hey, I know this Lakers gig's available. I got a good thing going in Milwaukee. I'm good.
Yep.
Or maybe the two sides were just like, yeah, we went on our first date. Wasn't cool. Or the Kings went, hey, we're going to focus on these experienced head coaches. And these three coaches that they have whittled it down to, Mark Jackson, Steve Clifford, and Mike Brown, definitely defensive-minded.
Yeah, and that was going to be kind of my question to you and to everyone else. And so make sure you guys keep this in mind, too, when we open up the chat after we discuss all the coaches. You know, is that the identity that the Kings are going for when they leaked out there that these are the three finalists? And I'm going to go with, yeah, that's the vibe I got from these three guys. So, yeah, I think the defensive-minded, and not to say that they're not going to focus on their offense and what they need to obviously still create an identity there. But, yes, defensively, you're seeing where they are understanding they need to take their next leap.
Do you think it's a mistake to push aside the assistant coaches, the Charles Lee, Darvin Ham, and of course Will Hardy with the Celtics? Is it a mistake to kind of go this way where it's like, hey, going established? They've made a decision. They want an established head coach.
Yeah, from my perspective, yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think that's like a hot take or anything, because I just think that there are so many fresh faces that have so much to give, but just haven't been given that opportunity. And I think sometimes with Kingsland, it's like, oh, we don't want to take that risk on someone too young and then have to, and that was like Michael Malone for us, right? Which was a great risk, which would have been awesome if he was still here coaching, but he's not. And then the other risk is the other extreme, right? Mike D'Antoni not on this list. And not to be.
That's a good point. We did not mention the fact that the three assistants, but Mike D'Antoni not a finalist, and that could be also another situation where he talked to the Kings, got to know him a little bit. It's like,
right,
I'm good.
And wherever that situation is, my opinion on that situation, when I first saw that his name was on the list, I felt a little relieved, and I think sometimes I look at the age, which is so unfair, and I need to stop being an ageist in this world.
Morgan was acting as if the Kings were going to have to hire someone on the staff to change D'Antoni's diapers.
Stop.
That's kind of the vibe you gave off. That was kind of the thing.
And that's so effed up because I think
70's not that old
It's
anymore.
not that old at all. And I think old people in our society are treated so badly. And so, like, I don't mean to be that person. I just look at the way that the Kings are trying to go, and I go, I want someone here for a long time. Is D'Antoni going to be the same at 75 that he is at 70? When you just hit a certain age, there's certain leaps and different things that just happen in your life. That's fine, whatever. So anyway, the two extremes don't seem to be the way that the Kings want to go, and they want to go with that safe, experienced middle ground.
You say safe. We'll dive into some of these candidates because
Yeah.
I'm not sure you could say safe.
Yeah.
With all of these candidates.
Resume safe?
I think the other thing with assistants, and let's be realistic about it. Some people a month ago, 3 weeks ago, did not know who Will Hardy was. And that doesn't mean he's going to be a bad coach or a great coach or whatever.
Right.
But I think we tend, and I'm guilty of this too, there is this kind of like fall in love with the unknown, right? It's same with the draft pick and these assistant coaches where I was like I was talking myself into Darvin Ham. I'm like, dude, he played the game, hard-nosed, seems like he holds guys accountable, can relate to the players. He's been with Budenholzer for a long time. Like, this is a guy you definitely talk to, and it's going to crush me if he goes and gets another job and it takes off. But I think for me, I was looking around the rest of the league and seeing some of these first-time head coaches like a Taylor Jenkins and the success he's had in Memphis, right?
Willie Green,
like Ime Udoka.
Yeah.
There's plenty of examples of some first-year coaches who are having some pretty significant success to start, and some who are in different situations that's going to take a little bit longer, like Jamal Mosley over in Orlando, other coaches. So we'll see. So I think I was kind of going that direction with my mindset. That's how I looked at the whole thing.
And that's I don't mean to be condescending or anything.
Here
Like,
we
that's
go.
cute, no, because that storyline, the way that we're seeing it unfold this season with those first year head coaches and the fresh faces, it's going wonderful, but it's not apples for apples. And you pretty much mentioned that too. It's not in every organization. And if there was a fresh face with the Sacramento Kings, would it be so different because they still haven't established a culture and identity and so many other things.
I did put a poll question out in the YouTube chat. Shout out to everyone on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button. That should be over 100 by now. We're live on a Saturday. Let's go. Hit the follow button if you're watching us on Twitch. I put a poll question. Who do you want as head coach? Mark Jackson, Steve Clifford, Mike Brown, or Morgan Reagan?
Wow.
Right now, 38% of the people are voting Morgan Reagan. You are the leading candidate
Oh
at
my
this
God.
point.
And let me tell you why I would be the best coach. I don't even care about the money, you guys. I just know I could get the most out of every guy out there.
I am going to put out a real poll question
What?
now. Like, who do you want? I'm going to put the 3 candidates because I want to see how the people are feeling out there. I feel like social media,
Thanks, everyone.
You definitely need to get out of the social media bubble sometimes,
Oh,
right? Because
yes.
depending on your feed, it may look different. So I'm very curious from those who are actually watching our show.
I'll never forget, I was talking to some people within King's media stuff, and they're like, oh, yeah, but the people on social media will say this, and they don't like me when I say that. And I'm like, no, who gives a shit? Like, and I'm serious. It's such a small percentage of people. There's so many people right now listening on YouTube and Twitch that aren't even on Twitter. You know what I mean? There's so many different categories and so many different platforms.
And the people who listen to us later, right?
Yes,
just on the audio.
absolutely. Oh my goodness. So,
All right. So, Morgan, of course, we're going to hang out after and talk with people after we wrap up the podcast. But let's go over the 3 finalists.
All right.
The first one is probably the one that it draws the most controversy.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that's Mark Jackson.
It is.
Mark Jackson, his name, when you say it on social media, I don't think there's any person that's like, I could go either way. It's either, no, this guy has been divisive. He has said some things that I disagree with. I don't want him coaching the team he hasn't coached. You have the other side that's like, dude, look what he did in his 3 years with the Warriors. He made Steph and Draymond and those guys believe, got great success. And you know what? He's exactly the type of risk that the Kings need. There's no real middle ground in this Mark Jackson conversation. Before we dive in, we should know he spent 3 seasons with the Warriors from 2011 to 2014. His record was 121 and 109, including 2 playoff appearances. He got let go after the team won 51 games, and they end up hiring Steve Kerr. We know how that story went. Since then, Mark Jackson has not coached in the league.
Nope.
Not as a head coach, not as an assistant. He has interviewed for other NBA head coaching gigs, but has not coached since. He has been on ABC and ESPN doing games since then. Morgan, what first comes to mind when you hear Mark Jackson as a finalist for the head coach of the Sacramento Kings?
First thing that comes to mind, because I'm trying to here really quick. Let me put this. I feel like with all these coaches, everyone looks for what's wrong first. Why don't we look for what's right first, or what maybe people are leaning into? And I'll say that Mark Jackson is a player's coach. Players like him. And that's the first thing that comes to mind with him. Now, do front offices like him?
No.
Not exactly. And what scares me about that is that the Kings obviously have a front office where there hasn't been a ton of stability throughout the years.
None.
Like almost none. And you look at the amount of different coaches that were in and out, and sometimes it's because of the relationship with the front office, sometimes it's with players, wherever it is. And that makes me nervous because there is not a culture established here in Sacramento.
Yes, and you could argue he helped establish a bit of a culture with the players in Golden State.
Sure.
As the time went on, and I've talked to so many people about this, I've read about it. This has been well chronicled, right? It's not like Mark Jackson got let go yesterday. I mean, he has not coached in the league since 2014. Plenty of people have had views on him. But the thing that he really got that group to buy in to was the us versus them mentality. Unfortunately, as the years went on there, the us versus them became the guys in the locker room like, oh, wait, it's us versus them against the front office.
Yep.
Us versus them is cool when it's like us against the world. We're going to go beat this team. We're going to prove these people wrong. We're going to do this. But when it becomes in-house, the friction, the headbutting.
Not good.
That's not good at all.
No, not for anyone's culture, not for anyone's everyday mentality. It's not good. And I mean, you know the stories. It was just Mark Jackson didn't want certain people coming into practices after
Jerry West being one of them.
Right. After being around, obviously, the team in the league for so long. So there was some weird hostility going on, and you just never wish that would happen because the names that you hear, but with the hostility going on with, they have good reputations. So when that happens, you question the person that is kind of pushing them out, which happens to be Mark Jackson.
And that is completely fair to bring up. Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, said after they let him go, he did an interview. He said part of it was that he couldn't get along with anybody else in the organization. And look, he did a great job and always compliment him in many respects, but you can't have 200 people in the organization not like you. That's pretty rough stuff.
And this is what I'll say too, you guys, because trust me, when I hear that makes my stomach hurt. But at the same time, I go, people change. Now, I hate to be the one that says that, and then it turns out he hasn't changed, but people change. He's 57 years old, so he's still in his 50s. You know, just I'm thinking of coaching wise because now everyone thinks I'm such an ageist. But that was a while ago. And has some things humbled him? Who knows? We don't know yet.
Well, and I think to be fair, this is where our mindsets are as people. I think, Morgan, is I tend to say the same thing where I'm like, look, I'm not the same person I was in 2014.
No.
Now, when Mark's case, there have been multiple things besides the Warriors thing, dating back to his time with the Utah Jazz, like toward the end of his career, whereas like one of John Stockton's last years, and he was trying to politic his way to become the starter there, trying to get some of the younger players on his side. Divisiveness. Like, those things can't happen in a team environment to function at a high level for a long time. That just won't happen. So, like, that to me is a concern. However, I'm a different person than I was in 2014.
Right.
I hope you are too, and I hope everyone out there listening and watching is different. So it's possible he's changed. I don't know, though. You know, I mean, he's also... I don't know. I would hope that this time away, this time not coaching, taking a step back, being turned down for job after what you did in Golden State would impact you.
And one of my favorite things, too, this last week, Deuce, you and I both got to talk to Sam Amick and James Ham a little bit more about even their thoughts on Mark Jackson. And Sam Amick was more along the line like, hey, I really like Mark Jackson. He's the type of guy that says, mama, there goes that man on the broadcast, and is also saying that into the mirror. Like,
big ego.
So that's going on for him. We've seen big egos around the league and people be able to work with them. How is that going to work with Mark Jackson being a head coach? And then you hear James Ham and what he had to say about Mark Jackson is just like, you know, just some of the things that he's done in the past, very questionable. Is that along the same?
Yes.
Does that align with what the Sacramento Kings want to do? It's all very confusing that Mark Jackson's name is a finalist, but I have a feeling they're looking at so much more than just the type of person he is, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know.
I want to get to a couple of things from Steph, Draymond, and then Andre Iguodala, because I think the player's perspective is important.
Yes.
The one thing to note, he did have a pretty good defensive team with the Golden State Warriors. Like, he got that group to buy in. They played really good defense. The one thing that I think kind of flies under the radar, and some of it could be because you had younger players then, the Warriors' offense at the time was not very good.
Okay.
Steve Kerr came in, and it became a force within the NBA and almost revolutionized. You could say Steph did revolutionize the game of basketball.
Sure.
Steve Kerr was able to unlock that. Would Mark Jackson have been able to do that? And that's the other question. Like, can he work with that? I think, on one hand, I like the fact that Mark Jackson, who he's a really damn good player, played at a high level in the NBA. I think he could get something out of Fox.
Sure.
As a point, that's a good thing.
It's a great thing.
That's the good there. But again, the divisiveness is what I talk about. That's not good. Before we continue on, let's hear from Andre Iguodala. You want to hear this? This is from like 3 years ago. He was doing a tour for his book. I dug this up, and they were asking him specifically about Mark Jackson, some of the things that went on with the Golden State. So there's Andre Iguodala on the Breakfast Club with his perspective on it. And, you know, that's some of the stuff that I think really impacts a lot of people that I've seen, at least the criticism, is some of his views. We talked to Sam Amick from The Athletic about that last week on the podcast, and his point was it's interesting, though, because he's still on, and he has been on ABC and ESPN in the biggest broadcast spot. You could be doing the biggest games on prime time, including the NBA Finals. So
it must not be that bad.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their views. You know, obviously, I disagree with Mark Jackson.
Very much disagree.
Right? Now, is he putting those type of things forth in the locker room to people within the organization? Is he?
Because that's also
divisive.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a concern. But going back to what Iguodala was saying, like, one of the best coaches I ever been with, he made us believe. He got us going. Like, I think that stuff does matter to a certain extent. Like, you can't ignore the fact that, like, I'm sorry, we can't all be sitting here as, like, people in the media, fans, execs, say, oh, this guy sucks. Yet there's players within the league who played for him who go, no, he should be coaching.
And we're allowed to obviously question
fair.
that, because we understand that it's a relationship-based league, especially now more than ever. But at the same time, you know, things that we would hear about Luke Walton toward the end is that, like, he was a player's coach, and that's what he was so good at. And it wasn't so much about the X's and O's. So can someone like Mark Jackson do both?
One more perspective. This is from Steph Curry and Draymond Green on Draymond's podcast, actually just a few weeks back, when they had a discussion about Mark Jackson, what he meant to them, and why he's not coaching in today's game.
he was very strategic and intentional about everything that he said. And that meant so much to us as a young team trying to just find an edge and find an identity. And it was contagious, man. Like, you know, he would come into every pregame speech and give us a sermon almost.
Absolutely.
And it would just be like something like you want to run through the wall or laugh or feel some type of emotion. And we go out and hoop. And he was so consistent in that front. So at that time in my career and our career as a team and journey that we were trying to, you know, come into, he was perfect for that because he was an extreme motivator, you know, an ultimate defender. He'd hype you up. He'd breathe confidence into you. And that's how we went out and played. And I think to his credit, sometimes you think about how everything ended after that third year. He almost would use different motivations that weren't even real. Like you kind of have to manifest something, like almost like the Kobe mentality or like MJ back in the day. Like I might make something up in terms of there's, you know, some enemy that doesn't even exist, but I'm gonna make sure everybody's on the same page against whatever that is.
Absolutely.
That's just how he rolled, and it was great for us in terms of, you know, giving us that edge.
Has it been shocking for you that he hasn't been able to
1,000%.
get another job?
I understand the drama around when he left because it was a front office coach disagreement, and he would probably admit that there were a couple interviews he did right after he left that he probably didn't need to do. He spoke his mind, he spoke his truth, but he probably, you know, I don't say regret, but you think about like, you know, doing it a different way on the back end. But when you talk about like somebody that knows the game, somebody that knows how to relate to players, somebody that is an ultimate competitor and play at the highest level, play for some great coaches and with other amazing, you know, players throughout his career, like all that wrapped into one person and just his vantage point as an analyst and all that. Like I'm extremely surprised. I know his name floats up a lot. He deserves another opportunity. Whoever want to take our opinion,
100%, 100%.
So, definitely surprised, and hopefully that won't remain too long.
I think when I'm looking around the NBA, I hope he gets an opportunity that he does not have to build a team the way he had to build us. But the reality is there's 10 to 15 teams a year in that same position that he's proven right here that he can handle that job for sure. Now, if you want to say, oh, well, he hadn't coached superstars because when he coached us, you weren't a superstar yet. Klay wasn't a superstar yet. You know, like we none of us had grown into who we became. So if you want to say, all right, well, he hasn't proven he can coach superstars. Well, what he has proven is at least that he can do that.
No doubt.
And so that part has been a bit shocking to me, I must say. And I hope to see, you know, his name just came up in the Lakers job, and I hope to see him get an opportunity because I think he did an incredible job. Everyone has their differences. I don't think any head coach or general manager or ownership group is on the same page at all times. I don't believe that. And after being in this league for 10 years, I can almost say that's for certain.
So there is Draymond Green and Steph Curry talking there.
Mm-hmm. What?
What are your thoughts? You have a smirk.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to be like, all right, Morgan, here's what I've given you the pros and cons. Make a decision. Is it Mark Jackson? I'm just trying, for me, I am trying to understand it because he hasn't coached the league since 2014. He literally hasn't. He's been away from the game.
Right.
And because of all the things we've heard about, yet I just played for you. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Andre Iguodala, players.
Yes.
Championship players.
Yes.
Players who have been at the top of the mountain. And not just be like, oh, he was a nice guy, he did good things. Like 100% he should be coaching.
And you guys, the reason why even Deuce saying it so enthusiastically like that, when players of this caliber are talking like this, and they're not just talking to sell. You know, we've seen LeBron sell his guys and really doesn't understand what's going to come from it or why, but they're having a genuine conversation, and I didn't get the feeling like they were trying to just sell Mark Jackson so he would get a job. They were just talking about him, how they felt like talking about him.
Yeah.
And does that sway me one way or another? No. That's what's crazy about that. That doesn't sway me. All that does for me is give me more information in my head to go, okay, so if the Kings do hire him, at least I can tell myself this happened and these players had these things to say about him. And, there's a little bit more there, but that's all it does for me.
I have one more quote from Jared Jack, who's in the league right now as an assistant, but played with the Golden State Warriors during that time. Actually, it was pretty good for them. He says, anybody who doesn't give that man a whole bunch of credit for what he was able to spearhead and get started out there, I think they're not in reality. They just don't know the situation. I was in those huddles. I was in the locker room sessions. The way he talked to us, the amount of confidence he gave us, go look at that kind of defense the Warriors were playing before Coach Jackson showed up and look at them now. Anybody that tries to downplay his role, that's not right. So there's some players' perspective. Now you go into bigger questions like, okay, even if you do think he deserves to be in the league, is this the right fit? Can Sacramento, a team that hasn't been able to find a stable head coach, whether it's picking the wrong person or letting go of the wrong person, they haven't been able to find one since 2006. Is this what they want to pin the turnaround on? Right, that's the question. And I think if you're the Kings, you have some serious questions about, and I'm sure this came up in the interview, but just his ability to work with people.
Yeah.
You have to have a cohesive and be pulling in a cohesive organization, be pulling in the right direction. You cannot have this constant friction. The us versus them mentality can't be within your walls. And in Sacramento, we know damn well that has been apparent at times within the organization.
Yeah, and it's sometimes I go, man, it sucks for him that he has this reputation, but this is also the consequences of the reputation that he has built, right? Now, whether he deserves to be looked like this years and years later, time can only tell, right? With what happens next for him. I think it's also a little bit telling that he didn't want to be an assistant coach in this league. This is also something with Sam Amick from The Athletic was telling us. He didn't want to be an assistant coach in the league because he sees himself as a head coach in this league. And whether that grind isn't there for him and whether that bothers me or not, that's just how some people view themselves and the confidence that they have in themselves. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for this man. I think sometimes we look way too much on the negative side of Mark Jackson and just we need to be a little bit more open to it. That's all.
Yeah, and to be crystal clear, don't agree with some of the views that he has put out there. And I think some of it
100% disagree with his views.
Also just he's even his assistants, right?
Yeah.
He had issues with Scalabrine.
Yeah. Deuce,
let him go,
so again,
Darren
I feel
Erman.
like you're trying to sway me
No,
one
I'm not
way.
swaying. I'm just putting it all out there.
Because I've already been there. I've already been on the negative side of things and I've been like, yeah, I don't know if I like this. And then I start to hear these players and I go, well, that's what it's really about is these players.
Morgan, because too many times when it comes to any conversation in sports, everyone, it's either this or that.
Right.
And you know what?
I'm in the gray. I'm open.
No, there's a lot of gray area here. It's like, God, there's some bad, there's some major concern. But you have to listen. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a really, really tough one.
Oh.
Should we move on to the next candidate?
Yeah, let's do that. That'll make me feel better.
He is probably the least sexy name.
Absolutely the least sexy name and the oldest.
Although, I'm a big Clifford, the big Red Dog fan. Remember Clifford?
I think everyone does.
No.
What? Of course.
Everyone remembers Clifford.
How do you not remember Clifford the Big Red Dog?
Steve Clifford is the next guy who I have been kind of mentioning from the beginning as someone that I like as a coach.
Oh, you've been mentioning since
him.
day one before his name was even the...
Okay. But I'm not saying he has to be the guy.
We're not like that with anyone.
Okay, I just think he's a good basketball mind. He understands defenses. And this is, like we just said with Mark Jackson, he helped the Warriors turn into a good defensive team. The offensive stuff,
right.
But he had 5 seasons with Charlotte, did Steve Clifford, below 500, 196 and 214. He had 3 seasons with Orlando where he's 96 and 131. 4 playoff appearances. He did have some health issues. It sounds like he's in a better spot health-wise right now,
Yeah.
obviously, as he's pursuing an NBA job. But I think it's a fair question that people ask just because it's like, hey, you have a health history and being an NBA head coach is not easy
Takes
on your
a
health.
toll on
It's
ya.
a grind, all right?
Yeah.
It's a travel. It's the late nights. It's a film session, the practice, the stress of winning and losing. So you have to be 100% sure on that. I can tell you what I like about Steve Clifford. He's just an experienced coach. And I think every team Steve Clifford has been to, they have gotten better. He has gotten the most out of them. Now, you're not going to look at his resume and go, oh my God, remember when he made it to the NBA Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals?
Right.
No, but I also would challenge you to look at his roster and say, oh, he should have made it to this. Charlotte, when he was there, became a 48-win team. They were top 10 in offense and defense. Oh, and by the way, before he got there, they were last in defense.
Ooh.
So I think what I like about Steve Clifford, and really these candidates are really, you hear some of the buzzwords. I know they're buzzwords, but accountability, structure, defense, all things that I feel like the Kings desperately need.
Desperate.
And De'Aaron Fox has mentioned in his post-game conversations. I just like Steve Clifford's experience going back to, being on Jeff Van Gundy's staff, Stan Van Gundy's staff. He's got the head coaching experience, guys like him. And I think he's gotten teams that don't necessarily have great defensive personnel to be pretty competitive defensive teams.
And that's great. It's very important because how many times have we talked about this King squad and this roster and being like, look, you don't have to have a whole bunch of superstars. You just have to have a coach to know what the hell to do with the ingredients that's there, right? And if you are a good coach, you understand what type of system or structure that you need to put in place that works with the players, not just what has worked with you over the years. Steve Clifford is one of those guys that can understand that. On top of all that, he's a pro. He's a professional. I say that because obviously Deuce and I are crazy obsessed and we've been watching a whole bunch of videos of all these guys throughout the day. And I'm just going back and watching old Orlando press conferences with him and just the way that he not only presents himself, but the way that he would talk about some of his players. He is a professional. I can dig that vibe. But mostly when you mention Steve Clifford, Deuce, we just talk about what he can do defensively. And that's totally fair. That's what his identity is, and that's what the Kings need to be good at. And I'm okay really being like, okay, here we are with Steve Clifford. This is what he does. He better knock it out of the park in his interview because that's the direction then the Kings would go.
The biggest thing for him as being kind of that old school guy too is he has to evolve. So I think one question mark I have for him is, does he still have the ability to connect with younger guys, right? Like, I think coaching has changed. I mean, it's something Mike Brown, the next candidate we're going to talk about, talks about how the coaching since he's been in the league, since he got his first gig when he was 35, has changed now that he's with the Golden State Warriors and he's had to embrace that. Has Steve Clifford totally embraced that? That is a question. Kemba Walker did say after he got let go, he said, he's been great from day one. He's been a great coach for me, very motivational. He got me to another level. I just love him as a coach, as a person. He's been special for me in my career. That's one person. It is Kemba Walker, who he knew pretty well in Charlotte.
Yeah.
You were talking about the defense. I do want to bring up some of the numbers.
Please.
I mentioned that Charlotte was 30th in defense when he took over. Then they were top 10 the next 3 years. They were 6th, 10th, and 9th. I mean, in Sacramento, we take 21st and be like, let's go.
Yeah, what a year that is for Sacramento.
Remember how the T-Wolves celebrated the play-in? That would be us at the end of the season. 20th in defensive rating, let's go!
I'd be like Pat Bev. I'd be crying on the court. Somehow I'd get down there.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yeah. Why, Drake?
Because we started from 30th, now we're 20th.
20th. Okay.
Anyway, so that was encouraging. Then in Orlando, they were top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating Charlotte, they were top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating in the 15-16 season.
Okay.
Then after that fell apart, went to Orlando. They were 8th in defensive rating his first year. Mm-hmm. They were 10th and then 29th his final year. They took a big drop off. That's when they blew it up, traded Fournier, Vucevic, Gordon, like they totally did.
Context matters.
And they decided to part ways at the end of the year because I don't think he wanted to go through a rebuild. He wanted to be in a different situation. I think they were like, yeah, cool. We want a younger coach to be a part of the rebuild.
And you listened to recently a podcast with him.
Yeah.
What was he saying on that podcast that like really intrigued you?
It's just, for me, I appreciated, it just seems like he's just very structured in his preparation and the focus on defense. And I think for Sacramento, like the focus is obviously big picture, like, hey, let's not be a clown show.
Yeah.
Let's not be a dumpster fire. Like,
cool.
let's just run our organization and win and have fun. But at a base level, like just some structure and accountability and defensive principles would be nice and being prepared. And that's why I keep going back to what De'Aaron Fox said after the season when he's like, yeah, just like we need to have more structure and preparation going into games and games. That comment was jaw-dropping to me. That one of your best players is saying that. I'm like, that's not good. That's a huge indictment against Walton and Gentry.
That's how much there's been a lack of that, obviously in more recent years and what we've seen before as De'Aaron Fox has been here for now going into his 6th season. So yeah, the fact that your best player, your star player, however the hell you want to identify him, is saying that is huge. And that's why I'm excited to talk about the next candidate.
Oh,
I'm already ready. With Steve Clifford, you know what's so sad? Even with Steve Clifford,
Steve Clifford is like, I feel like he's kind of the safe guy.
He's just safe, solid,
he'll
great.
be good. He'll do a good job.
That's why I can say what I'm excited for. I can say what I'm not excited for. I'm open to everyone, but the next candidate, I can't hold myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
really hope it's Mike Brown.
the next candidate is Mike Brown, who you look at his resume in terms of the win totals and what he did in Cleveland with LeBron. Pretty special. His overall record as a head coach, 347 and 216. He started his coaching career when he was 35 years old. Head coaching career when he was 35 years old with the Cavs. Spent 5 seasons there at a 620 win percentage. Obviously elite. Obviously having LeBron help that, but let's not lose sight of the fact that it's not like that roster was stacked with a whole bunch of all-stars unless you're going to hype Mo Williams to me and Boobie Gibson and Anderson Varejao. After that, he went to the Lakers during that kind of weird time, right, with Dwight, 41 and 25 in that one season. And then the next year, he got blown out after 5 games, 1 and 4. Then he went back to Cleveland for one season, 33 and 49. So he last coached. It's been a while since he's been a head coach in the league since that opportunity. And he's been with the Warriors since 2016.
And I could be completely wrong, but I feel like he has a bad rap because of some of those seasons as a head coach. And just there's certain things thrown at him, right? And you're going to see that with head coaches throughout the NBA where it's like, what? But they did shit there. They did nothing there, especially when they're experienced head coaches. That's going to happen. But at the same time, not only does context matter, but also it doesn't mean that now, since he's been on other coaching staffs, that things have changed. The way that he would be a head coach, the way that he views other things. One of my favorite things, again, from The Athletic, Sam Amick, what he said to us was that Mike Brown has like an OCD kind of personality with the way that not only that he picks out his suits and his outfits, he's so prepared, but the way that he coaches too. I dig the shit out of that because I also have the OCD mentality where it's not a true problem, but I love organizing. I love being organized. I love planning. If he's into that and he's into structure, discipline, all those wonderful things that we've been talking about, that De'Aaron Fox has been talking about, I'm there. I'm not acting like, oh, I'm all in because of that. He's also a really good person. There's been other things about him coaching the Nigerian basketball team and not even accepting a salary. They obviously, made sure they took care of him in other ways, but not accepting a salary because the game was so important to him and basketball is so important to him. And that's what was the main focus for him, even in that situation.
Well, as you just heard from Mike Brown's PR person, I guess, Maureen Reagan,
I just like him a lot. And I'm not acting like I'm going to be crushed if he's not the coach.
A couple of things I do like about him. He's been around great coaches.
He has.
Greg Popovich. Mm-hmm. To this day, they're close friends. Rick Carlisle in Indiana, the first go-around. Steve Kerr. he's been around great coaches, great players. Tim Duncan, of course, pretty damn good player in San Antonio. Then LeBron, a young LeBron.
Yeah.
And I understand having LeBron on your team makes things a little bit easy, but I think sometimes he gets shit on because, well, his other times weren't great, and the only time he was winning was with LeBron. And it's like, if anything tells you, look at LeBron in the NBA and tell me it's easy coaching him. Please. Please tell me it's easy to coach a LeBron team. It's not easy. There's a lot of things you have to juggle. He won Coach of the Year in 2009. I feel like he has great relationships with his players, his coaches. Michael Malone was on his staff, by the way, in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So he's got good taste.
Good taste in that.
He also said this: when I first started coaching, most of the coaches were type A personalities. I was too. You coached differently 15 years ago. The players were different. The league was different. To be around Steve, to feel and see and smell and taste the richness that he brings to the table, but also the respect he gets, it's a beautiful thing to watch. He goes on to talk about how he absorbs his environment with the Warriors. He saw how well it worked, saw how it gave players a voice, realized how this was one more thing that players appreciated and that provided a sense of freedom without sacrificing performance on the court. He said, you learn a lot from those players, especially from guys that have been around for a long time and been with a lot of different teams, been in losing situations and winning situations. You learn a lot about how to coach them. Those guys have all been very instrumental in my growth, not only as a coach, but also as a person. Mike Brown was a head coach at a very young age.
Yep.
35 years old. And he was thrown into the fire to coach what could be one of the best players, if not the best player to ever play in the NBA.
Correct.
I think this is a guy that has learned a lot. He's been around Durant, Curry, Thompson, Draymond, LeBron, Duncan, great coaches. He knows defense. He's been around Kerr to know about having that culture. There's a lot of things to like here, and in my dream, in Deuce Mason's dream scenario, that's not going to happen.
Oh, I thought you had a dream.
It's not going to happen.
Okay.
But, like, there is something to be said that maybe you can get Mike Brown as head coach.
Okay.
And if the Kings were willing to fork out some money and do some convincing, could you have Steve Clifford as his associate? Because Clifford was on his staff with the Lakers. Now, if you're Clifford, is that something you'd want to take? A lead job with the Kings? Like, I don't know. Okay, that's probably a long shot. But the idea, I think, is not a bad one.
Hey, well, it's not a bad one. And you also know if the Kings, by the Kings' track record, if for some reason Mike Brown was fired really quickly, you'd be quickly to be the interim head coach.
No.
Don't even go there.
I do like Mike Brown as a coaching candidate. I think he's had the time, the perspective since his first go around, and I think he's ready for a new opportunity. Now, for him too, I think he's got to be sold by the Kings, you know, and I think that's something that some of the media and that covers the Warriors have talked about, is that Brown is eager to become a head coach again, but he'd have to feel the Kings are the right fit for him to leave Golden State.
Which makes sense.
And that's not an easy thing. Like, by the way, can we just highlight the fact of how many Warriors, Kings head coaches, Gary St. Jean, Rick Adelman, Michael Malone,
Are you missing any?
Luke Walton,
Oof.
Keith Smart.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, Walton. That's 6.
You said Walton already.
I'm saying him again. That's 7. I'm a little tired. All right, my brain's shut down a bit.
I knew it.
But like, that is insane to me.
Yeah. No, it is. But it also shows you too, you know, we always talk about Greg Popovich and his coaching tree.
Gentry.
Yeah.
Yes.
It shows you too that what comes out of Golden State, right? And the culture that is in place there, and the growth and what you can learn from being there. And that's why with someone like Mike Brown, in the past, I've been critical of him and his coaching, and I'm like, why is everyone so high on Mike Brown being a head coach still after, you know, what he did here and what he did here? And then as I kept learning and growing and seeing what else these guys do to take their next steps, that's what started helping me understand what these what you ruined my train of thought. What?
I was looking at you. Could have finished your sentence.
Yeah, what?
You're going on for 8 minutes. I'm sorry. I was just going to mention George Karl as another guy.
Another one. So anyway, but my whole point with Mike Brown, I just think there is so much value to being with a team like the Golden State Warriors within that culture, and some of these other coaches as well.
It's going to be fascinating. It is such a big decision. And I think some fans are a little disappointed. It's not some of the assistants. I think I think Sean Cunningham mentioned this on James Ham's podcast too. Like, the list, like Terry Stotts wasn't on it. Mm-hmm. Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah.
These are some coaches with some decent reputations.
Right.
Sam Cassell.
Yeah. It's weird for me, Deuce, because sometimes I feel like this process is going really fast, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. How many times a day are they talking to some of these people in this interview process? Just interviews are grueling, especially over
It's
Zoom.
grueling, but you know what? I got to be honest.
What?
I think it's more grueling for this organization because if you're a head coach in the league, you're a coach in this league,
Yeah.
and you're looking at opportunities. Yes, it's a 1 of 30. But they always talk about the coaching fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
They're all close. Everyone knows each other. They talk.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, how was this? Oof. Mike Brown. Mike Brown's got a good connection to Steve Kerr, who knows Luke Walton. Hey, let me pick up the phone. Mike Brown, let me call Alvin Gentry for a minute. Right?
No. Don't do it.
But these are real things. Mark Jackson, call who? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's real.
So for the Kings, you have to sell something that's hard to sell because there's no track record of you doing it.
Yep.
You have not had a track record of winning over 16 years. You haven't had a track record of sticking with a coach for more than 3 years since Rick Adelman.
I think
those are concerns.
what I feel like with coaches like Mark Jackson and Steve Clifford is that they want to be in the league as head coaches, and they're like, hey, we feel like we can change anything. We're willing to take anything. When you hear those things about Mike Brown, absolutely he wants to be a head coach in this league, but he seems like the type that understands where he wants to be a head coach in this league. And that's not sacrificing his happiness or his way of playing the game of basketball for some organization.
Yeah. Shout out, by the way, to our guy, Sean Stanfield at rate.com/Sean Stanfield and Guaranteed Rate, bringing you first thoughts today. We appreciate his support. Go to rate.com/Sean Stanfield. You can also hit him up, 916-276-7563. And you're going, Deuce, why are you telling me this right now? Because he has helped a couple of our podcast listeners. One, buy a house, another refinance, and he's been so easy for these people to work with. There's no high pressure sales tactic or anything crazy like that. Reach out to him. If you think you can buy a house or you're like, hey, can I afford to? Hit him up. He can help you today,
Just
Morgan.
text him. Ask him anything, you guys. I'm serious. I know there's so many people that are like, what should I be doing? Should I still be renting? Should I be buying? Text Sean. He will literally help you with anything. He's that easy to talk to.
Rate.com/Sean Stanfield. That's equal housing lender subject to credit approval. NMLS ID number 349707. Company NMLS ID number 2611. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Thanks so much to our friends over at
Guaranteed.
Great.
Guaranteed.
Great.
With that, we're going to wrap up the audio portion of this. Is that cool with you?
I love it.
We appreciate everyone joining us on the audio. We will be live again on Monday with another podcast. And of course, if there's anything that breaks with the Kings coaching search, we will be live. For now, we're going to go ahead and do some bonus coverage with our people watching live on YouTube and Twitch. We love you, but we gots to go.
You all have a great rest of your day. Stick around if you want to chat. See ya.
And boom.
Boom. Here we go. All
Very
right.
good.
I'm excited to hear some of these comments. I was reading some while we were going on.
It was hard.
But
It was hard to read all of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop, you know what? I'm going to get a little crazy, Morgan.
Oh my God.
I'm going to drop the Discord right on you.
Oh,
If you guys want to do a little voice chat, it's like old times again. Let's talk. If you have thoughts on what we just said and talked about, SMC Hoops.
Yeah. What you got?
Among these three candidates, it's not that big of a decision anymore. All can be fine, but unlikely to achieve a big turnaround. I'm not sure it's a lock. Brown is willing to spend his last shot at a head coaching gig with the Kings unless they give him 3 to 4 years and money. Yeah, I feel like any coach, you're going to have to give 4 years.
It's a great point. It's a great, yeah, that's another point, right? It's who's desperate for who, right? Who's going to really make sure that they're putting everything out there to either be a coach, or the Kings putting everything out there to make sure that they get that person as a head coach.
Oh my God. We already have our guy Ebiz in the chat. If you want to hop into the voice chat, hop in our Discord like our guy Ebiz. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, man? How you guys doing?
Good.
We are good, man.
All right, beautiful, beautiful, man. I've been watching you guys lately. I don't catch you guys live anymore. I just watch you guys at night and all that.
Hell
So,
yeah.
so this is what I have to say, all right? I'm kind of frustrated how people are with the coach searching because one thing I will say is Deuce, like real talk, I think out of everybody that's had an opinion about the coaching, I agree with you the most. And when I talk about agreeing with you the most, it's about the Mark Jackson thing. All right, I understand stuff that he's gone through, but I'm sure that he's changed, since 2014. And Morgan, I know how Deuce said it to you, like I'm sure you changed since 2014, and I'm sure most of us have changed since 2014. So I'm just talking about with him, like I really think like, we all have to be open to it because obviously we're not the ones that's interviewing them. That's Monty and I guess Vivek, I guess, and maybe other people they're interviewing them. We're not interviewing them. We're all going off of what we think. Like for example, there's so many people that like the other coaches and the finalists. I mean, the original candidates. Has anybody thought that maybe their interview wasn't good?
No, and
Or
that's and Ebis, that's like there's so many factors with the other interviews. To your point, is like one, it could have been a bad interview. Like maybe they talked to Will Hardy and they're like, yeah, this guy doesn't have it, right? Or they weren't a good fit for each other. Or Will Hardy was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want my first gig to be in Sacramento. There's a lot of factors at play for sure.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, Ma?
Yeah, no, I'm right there, Ebiz. I think sometimes we talk about humanizing these athletes, and I think we have to do the same things with the coaches as well. And guys can change, but we're allowed to judge off of track record of what maybe someone believes or what someone has said. And until they show something different, then we're allowed to kind of judge off that. But at the same time, don't you have to give the people the chance to show something different too? So that's why I'm so open to things.
And Patrick brings up a good point in the chat. We all assume Jackson changed for the better. And by the way, I'm not assuming that. I said he could have. Who knows? I've changed.
Yeah.
He could be even worse now.
Absolutely.
And that's true. You never know. Like could change for the worse, no doubt.
No, yeah, that's facts. I feel you on that. And I understand about, like obviously we're all gonna have opinion about somebody, like just getting to know them. For example, if you want to talk about, say, like me, like getting a girlfriend, like if my friends know something about her, obviously, I'm gonna want to know something like, maybe I should go that way or maybe I shouldn't. But we can go with the new coaches, with the assistants. All right, I remember when what's his name? The Boston coach?
Will Hardy. Or are you
All
talking
right.
about Ime
No, no, no,
Udoka?
no, no.
Ime Udoka?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, him. So I remember when he got hired and when Willie Green got hired, a lot of people had a problem with both of them because, especially with Boston, because they were wondering what the hell Brad Stevens was doing by getting somebody brand new. And then people were talking about that with David Griffin with New Orleans. Like a lot of people are talking about that, and look what ended up happening. We do not know what's gonna happen at all with all these coaches. But once again, you have to think though, you guys, like they're not coaching us. They're coaching freaking the other players. So we should hope that that the players.
Oh, Ebis? We lost Ebis.
Wow. Well,
That was
appreciate you,
Appreciate the
Ebis.
call. I want to get to sorry, Ebis. I don't know what happened, man. I want to read some of the comments in the chat too, but great points from Ebis. Like,
Yeah.
let it
No,
play out. I
thank
get
you
it.
for missed you.
SMC Hoop says Mark Jackson has only been a coach only 3 out of his 57 years on the planet. That's a weird resume. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I brought up a couple of times. Once with Sam, multiple times. Like he wasn't even an assistant anywhere, so that is definitely a concern. Andrew says, tell me what is great about Clifford. 42, 33, and 21. Big declines each year in Orlando. Roster is essentially the same. Dude obviously lost the locker room after the first year. Andrew, I see if you're just looking at that, sure. he had some injuries down the stretch, and in that final year, they blew the team up. It was just they decided to go a different way. And yeah, you got to also acknowledge what he did in Charlotte too. I don't think anyone looks at Steve Clifford and thought he severely underachieved with the roster they had. I keep pointing back to the fact that they had a top 10 defensive team with Vucevic, who I know is good at protecting the rim, but not a great defensive player, and Evan Fournier in your starting lineup, you're doing something right. Let's see here. B Metal says his beliefs were based on religion, so I doubt that's changed. Well, it's
Still
also,
change.
but also it's not just that. It's the other stuff is like how he deals with people and in the organization, the us versus me mentality. That has to shift big time.
Yeah. And it can still change.
Greg says Kenny Atkinson is the man for this job. He might be, but he's not a finalist. So like, I don't know. By the way, if you're here, can you do me a huge favor? Hit the thumbs up button. I need that to go. We got 200 plus people watching us live on a Saturday because you guys are amazing. Kings fans are bizarre, amazing, awesome. Hit the thumbs up, not because it makes me feel good, because it helps our channel grow.
By the way, Deuce and I were talking about our draft coverage yesterday. So just know our draft coverage is going to be so fun. We're super excited. So make sure to be ready for that.
Our draft coverage.
Oh, don't hype it. It's just going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Let's check in next with Mark with a C. What's up, Mark with a C?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good. What's up?
Just excited that I don't know if I'm excited that we're already at the point of a finalist, but it's good to keep the news flowing. I think out of those three, I think my ranking is Brown is the number one guy I want, then Jackson, then Clifford. But do you guys think possibly that like each of those guys are one of Vivek, Wilcox, and Monty's picks, and then that was kind of the way they did? Because it feels like Jackson would be Vivek's pick.
I've heard mixed things on that part. Obviously there's Vivek's always tied with the Warriors because of his time as a minority owner with that organization. But I don't know what his relationship was with Mark Jackson, right? I know he really liked Michael Malone. We talked to James Ham about that, and when they hired Malone, there was a lot of thought that Vivek liked Malone because he felt like he was the one that was kind of steering the ship there. So, but I don't know what's true and what's not their relationship. I think if you're running this the right way, it's your basketball people are talking about it, right? Monty's the lead. You're picking Joe Dumars' brain, Wes Wilcox. You're working together as a front office. Maybe you hit up Sabonis and Fox, but hey, we've whittled it down to this. What are your vibes? Yeah, what are you guys vibing with? What do you guys think about this list? Cool, okay. And then you bring the list of Vivek and here's what we're going with. And he's the guy that has to sign the check, so he's gonna have some say and he's gonna ask some questions. But in the right organization, it's your work, and the basketball people are coming up with the idea, and then the seal of approval comes from the top.
Yeah, I think I would love to see Mike Brown as the coach. I was kind of hoping that they were going to wait until bowl news if Jazz were going to release Quinn Snyder or not.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of people mentioning Quinn Snyder, and I feel like I mentioned his name 3 months ago, but I need to make something clear. Quinn Snyder is not going, hey, all right, Utah, it's not working out there. I don't want a contract extension. I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go to Sacramento. Quinn Snyder could probably get almost any job he wants in the league right now. I don't think Sacramento is going to be atop of his list. Now, if I were the Kings, would I be trying to do everything to convince someone like Quinn Snyder and pay him as much money as he wants? Yes, but I think in reality, Quinn Snyder is not at a point where he feels like he needs to take the Kings job. I just don't think they're... Now, if there was some major tie that I'm missing, if he's best friends with someone, maybe that changes, but no, I do not see that. To me, it's San Antonio if Pop ends up stepping down, the Lakers, or as Sam Amick told us the other day, maybe he takes a year off.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I was thinking Charlotte too, but yeah, even if we could just pick his brain, that'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to pick his brain for sure.
Give me Mike Brown, and I'm a happy camper at that point. But,
I like it.
You guys have a good day.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. I was saying not true in the chat, responding to Bag, who says Snyder has 4 years left and has an additional year as a coach's option. No, he turned down an extension, so no, that is not accurate in terms of his contract. Nope. What are some other things I wanted to address? Shout outs real fast to Jordan, who donated $5 super chat for the Hire Mike Brown Fund. And our guy, Kenneth, who donated $50.
Appreciate you, Kenneth.
Hell yes. Lon says, I'm not a fan of Mark Jackson's views, but I do believe he can coach, and I more importantly think he could draw talent here that might have gone somewhere else. Talent in the NBA matters more. Yeah, I don't know that he would be a free agent draw, but I don't know. Maybe you're right. But it is undeniable that elite NBA talent likes the guy.
Yeah.
That matters.
It matters. Yeah. And I think I saw someone else talking about they're not going to give Mike Brown the years or the money that he needs, and then it's going to land upon Mark Jackson. And I hope that type of drama isn't the case. I hope the Kings get whoever they want from these 3 finalists. It's so sad because we definitely just go over Steve Clifford like he ain't even there.
Oh, I didn't. I mean, we highlighted him.
We did. No, we did. I just feel like in conversation with other humans about this, it's like, we're not talking about Steve Clifford, Yeah. And that's what makes me sad too. When I got these 3 finalists, I'm like, we sure as hell would be talking about Darvin Ham.
Yeah. My ears hurt.
You're getting sick, bruh.
No, from the headphones.
Oh.
I don't know why. Just they're sore.
Oh, well.
Greg says all you have to do is ask Chef Curry about Jackson. That will clear up a lot of the BS. Yeah, we played that on the show today. You might be late, but we did play that clip. The Burtman. Okay, hear me out. Maybe the Kings hire Mark Jackson. And LeBron loves the guy. So maybe the Kings draft Bronny and then the king becomes a king.
I don't even know if I love that whole situation.
No.
All it would do would sell tickets and have some hype. But honestly, for the future stability of the actual team and the structure, nah.
Pedro says, why do they always go with Golden State leftovers? Why do you think the obsession exists? Love you guys. Yeah,
Appreciate
especially in recent years. I mean, I think sometimes you tend to be interested in teams that have done it well for a long time, right? Like you look at the assistants that they were talking to at one point, Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
Or people tie the Budenholzer.
You guys, it's a team collaboration. There's that adds to the success of that organization or of that team, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's Golden State. That's why you're always hearing about those assistant coaches on those coaching staffs.
Shout out to a $3 donation for, I always mess it up.
Dobro.
Thanks,
Dobro.
Scotty says Stotts for the win. I mean, it's not happening. So I just moved on. I know what you're saying. Should he have been a candidate? Sure. But SMC Hoops, a lot of fans realize Jackson was only an announcer before he coached the Warriors. Jackson, Doug Christie, bringing their combined 4 years of experience, better have some legit veteran assistants. Yeah, a staff is pretty important for sure. And especially with Jackson's history with the staff, you get a really good one, Michael Malone, but then Malone dipped out. You got to have a good staff. I'm with you.
It's like we just mentioned, it's a team effort. The amount that you collaborate with these assistant coaches and the strategy, it all has to align. You all have to be on the same page in so many ways.
West Sac Kings fan says, if it's Mike Brown, would they have to wait to announce until after the playoffs? No, because they have permission. So we've seen situations before where someone on a staff gets hired, they announce it, but that person obviously will finish their duties with their current team.
Yeah.
Now we know who you want, but who do you think they will hire? What's the gut telling you?
Ooh.
Here's what I think.
What?
I think they want Mike Brown.
Okay. Okay.
Then it becomes very interesting after that.
Yeah.
If Brown says no, I wonder if it's Jackson and maybe Weapon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Steve Clifford's his assistant. I don't know. I mean, I don't.
My-
do they cross pass when Mark Jackson played with the Knicks? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I shouldn't even be down on it if it's not Mike Brown. Yeah.
Let's see. Steve Clifford
Yeah.
was an assistant with the Knicks when Mark Jackson played for the Knicks.
And you know what's so great too is like we could be talking about all this. And
Also
then,
an assistant with the Rockets when Mark Jackson played for the Rockets.
wow, we could be talking about all of this, and the season hits, and it's the complete opposite of what we're saying. You know, of what everyone's saying on Twitter and how things are actually going to go. So you just got to be open to it all.
Man, very interesting. Very interesting. Let's get to a couple more questions before we wrap things up. But yeah, I wonder if Clifford and Jackson have any relationship. That's something to consider. I don't know.
Why is that something to consider?
Because if
You just like it for you. Just now, Deuce is already there, where Steve Clifford is already going to be the lead assistant on one of
I'm
these.
not there, I'm just saying. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. A basketball mind, a professional.
Landon says, "Hear me out. Bring in Mark Jackson to light a fire under this lazy underperforming team. Then let Jackson go after 3 years and bring a real coach in after the Kings make the playoffs, and then win 8 championships like the Warriors. Cool.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
Let's see here. Leezy, what's up, Leezy? Question: who would be assistants for Mark Jackson or even Mike Brown? Man, it's been such a long time since Mike Brown was a coach in the league. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned this earlier. Steve Clifford was on Mike Brown's staff with the Lakers. I think part of that had to do with the fact that Dwight was on the team, and Dwight and Steve Clifford are really tight. So Dwight Howard will probably sign with the Kings this offseason.
Yeah, there you go. Dwight Howard.
So it's an interesting question. Michael Malone was with Mike Brown in Cleveland. Chris Gent was, so I'm not sure.
It's been
I
a
don't
while.
know.
See, that's the thing. When you look at all these coaches, like it's been a while since they've been, I mean, I guess just a little bit since they've been a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Clifford's the one that coached in 2021. Mark Jackson's 2014. And I believe, isn't Mike Brown 2014 too as a head coach? Let's double check that just to make sure I'm accurate here. Yeah, his last gig as a head coach was 2014.
Yeah. So
it's been a while.
Yeah. For Steve Clifford, I mean, that's the most recent. And you look at also a lot of coaches get other jobs on other coaching staffs that were once with them. So
Morgan, we have an update.
What?
Wow. This is why we love our listeners to the podcast. Felipe donates $2. He has let us know that he's in Australia and Mark Jackson is already the coach.
Wow.
There in the future.
Thank you, Felipe. I'm so.
Should we do a new podcast? All right, let's get our first thoughts.
Scratch this one, delete.
Our insider, Felipe from Australia, tells us in the future, Mark Jackson is the guy.
Appreciate that.
Ellis says, when we hired George Karl because of his experience at the time of the hire, were you excited? Oh, Ellis, was I excited for George Karl? 100% I was. I mean, to rewind for a second, I could not have been more down about them firing Malone. And my whole thing was, if you're firing Michael Malone, you need to get a good head coach in place. And I thought George Karl, believe it or not, I thought he could be the guy to do it. I was definitely wrong.
I mean, so were a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know?
McCombie says, Darvin Ham off? According to the reports, he is not a finalist with the Sacramento Kings for their job. Rory says, Jeff Van Gundy obviously has a relationship with Mark Jackson and Clifford.
Ooh,
yeah, he does. Maybe Jeff Van Gundy leaves the booth.
Okay.
Assistant.
Someone else was saying, do you think Ham backed out because of the Lakers having interest in him? And
I think that's a legit thing.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what's great that we don't know right now, but these are all stories that will end up coming out, and we'll get to know more about, like, oh, were people not interested in the Kings, or were the Kings not interested in them?
I mean, there's been talk about Mark Jackson in the Lakers too. And he's a Clutch client,
Right.
Rich Paul's agency. By the way, let's connect the dots for a second.
Oh God.
Shams, one of the best insiders in the game.
Clutch.
Clutch, his agency, the agency that he is represented by, partnered with Clutch. So it's no surprise that he is broke news on the Clutch stuff,
Correct.
right? With Ben Simmons and Mark Jackson, both times him being interviewed, and then that I mean, the agents are the ones leaking this stuff. The agents are the ones leaking the Woj about, hey, the finalists and stuff. That's where we're at this point. So that's why Woj gets different information than Shams, Rich Paul, and Clutch. Well, I don't know Rich Paul specifically, but Clutch. And LeBron represented by Clutch. There's a lot of tie-ins.
There's a lot of tie-ins.
SMC Hoops says bring back Rex Clamian for a third time.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. You guys are literally the best. Again, we'll be live again if there's more breaking news. If not, we'll see you guys Monday. We love you guys so much, but we gots to go.
You're all badass. Thanks for being here on a Saturday. See you Monday.
Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know.